My thoughts on the grooming gang inquiry. First of all, it's long overdue. Secondly, the politicians clamouring to claim credit for forcing the government's hand on this, to me, are absolutely deluded. The reality is that there's only one man in this country who forced the issue on this, and he was ignored, demonised, vilified, imprisoned, and tormented for many, many years, and that's Tommy Robinson. Yes, other people have spoken about it, but the catalyst for this was Elon Musk looking at what was happening with Tommy and then starting to ask questions about grooming and about what had been happening up and down the United Kingdom. And that was as a result of him seeing Tommy in prison and asking questions about why Tommy was in prison. And the reality is that Tommy has faced prison sentences time and time again because he has stood for what's right, what's just, and he hasn't backed down. And grooming is another one of those scandals. In 2018, May 2018, I come to London for my birthday, got off the plane, and my phone blew up with text messages about Tommy getting arrested as he was going to film convicted rapists going to get sentenced. And he spent months in prison as a result of that, which did him incalculable damage at the time. And again, he's just in another prison sentence for being a journalist. It's as simple as that. That's why he was in prison, because he was doing his job as a journalist, doing undercover reporting. And again, the establishment didn't like that. They use any excuse they can get to lock him up, and that's exactly what they did. But this video isn't about Tommy, but we've got to put the context out there. In 2020, we got information from Telford that we had people that were willing to talk, and we started making the film. Tommy had just come out, surprise, surprise, of another prison sentence, and he was still recovering. And the effect that those prison sentences has had on Tommy, people have got to realise, massive, massive effect. He was still recovering. We got intelligence. There was people willing to talk to us in Telford. I put a team together, spoke to Tommy, said, look, you don't have to do anything. You sort yourself out. We're going to make this film. We started making the film, of course. Tommy being Tommy, as soon as we started making the film, he did get involved, and it gave him a real kind of focal point and something to focus on, which was good. But those films were groundbreaking, and those films were based on whistleblowers in the Telford area, and also people who were willing to leak information from one of the reports that have been published in Telford. And what we found was shocking. We shone a light on probably, I'm trying to think, half a dozen of the senior people involved in the Pakistani mafia in Telford. I'm being careful what I say, obviously, because of the censorious nature of YouTube. And we exposed those people. Not one of those people has ever sued Tommy, ever. Not one. Haven't threatened to, haven't done it, because everything that was said was true. But we found a lot more. We found the depth of what was going on. We found that there were Labour councillors involved in, should I say involved? I'm not going to say that. Very closely associated with this mafia. We found that police officers had been compromised. We found that very, very prominent lawyers from the Pakistani community were working with this mafia. We uncovered loads of stuff. We had, I think, 250 something suspects that we knew about, that we knew had almost certainly done stuff, but we just didn't have enough evidence to go after them. But a lot of people were naming them. And when the ones that we did go after were really the bosses. They were the top men in this pyramid of abuse. And again, we made sure that we had at least 2 witnesses for every single person that we were pointing fingers at. And the way the girls had been treated was absolutely abhorrent. Trafficked across the whole of England. Attacked, and I'm using the word attacked, but everybody knows what I mean. Assaulted hundreds of times by Pakistani Muslim men. One of the girls told me, she said, the freshies were the worst. And freshies are people that are just off the boat. So-called asylum seekers, people that had come in because of family connections with Pakistan and illegal migrants. That's what the girl said to me. They were the worst. One of the girls will be locked in a room with freshies, and again, freshies are migrants, with freshies, and basically left there by some of the people that we featured in the film. Another girl told me that she was taken to an establishment in Telford, and she was about to go to the police. She was going to expose everything. She was ready to blow the whistle. She was taken to an establishment in Telford, taken into the back of the establishment where a chest freezer was plugged in, sitting there. The chest freezer was opened, and inside the chest freezer was the body of a teenage girl. That's what this person told me. Now, it's anecdotal evidence. I have no evidence that it's true or not, but I have no reason to believe she was lying either. That happened. That's not me making things up. That's what this girl told me, and everything else that she told us was very, very accurate. Now, when this was done, the team got in touch with the National Crime Agency. There's an audio recording of it somewhere, and said, we have all this evidence, we have all these eyewitness statements, we can send this to you. The National Crime Agency came back and said they didn't want it. They didn't want to know. So what does that tell you about the state and about the deep state and about the establishment, about whether they're taking this seriously or not? Now, let's hope the National Crime Agency have now got a grip of this and they actually are willing to look at it. And I'm sure the evidence that was gathered will be made available to them. I don't hold the evidence, but the evidence is held somewhere safe. I'm sure that evidence will be passed on if the National Crime Agency asks for it. So that's how deep this is. That's how dark this is. And the reality is, it is still going on today. That was admitted in Parliament, that so-called asylum seekers are involved in this. And I want to say something else about this. HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy. We found this out when we were in Telford. They're obviously being very careful about targeting very young girls. They're still doing it, but they're being very, very subtle about how they're doing it. But what is happening is girls that are 16, which is the age of consent as far as I know in England, it's 17 in Northern Ireland, 16 in England. Girls that are getting kicked out of residential care are now going into HMOs, and goodness knows their fate, because they're going into HMOs with Pakistani, Afghan, Iraqi, Somali asylum seekers, stroke illegal migrants. So what's happening there? The HMOs are going to be the next scandal. Without a shadow of doubt, the HMOs are going to be the next scandal in this country. And vulnerable girls being put into those HMOs. And a lot of those HMOs are run by the same Pakistani mafia. So let's watch this space. Let's see what this report does. But I think there's a lot more to come out about what's happening. And I think the methods will change slightly to make it just at the bar of legality. And grooming will be happening for 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, who in my eyes are little more than children anyway. See you all soon.